Hi, everybody. So we're here with this is such a long word, right? Donor Participation Conference Steering Committee? Is that what we are?
Mhm.
Um, hi, welcome everybody. This group, we're representing this group here today, has worked tirelessly for the last 3-4 months to actually come up with a conference. And even before that, there were think tanks and there were all types of planning and analyzing what conferences were like. So we thought we'd just hop on with you for a few minutes today. If anybody has any questions about what it's like to put on a conference, to answer them, and then we'll kind of go around in a round robin, and folks will share what it is that they liked, they didn't like, what it's been like to be involved, and all of that. So I see nodding heads. Does that sound like a plan? Who wants to go first? I'll call somebody out. Deb Best.
Oh.
Thanks.
All right. So I got involved with the conference because, as with all of us, I was already involved in donor participation project. I had come back to the nonprofit space in late 2020, and as a byproduct of being a remote worker, was looking for community and professional development in unusual ways. And through another contact, saw Lewis on LinkedIn and said, "Hi, I'm not a major gift officer or a president of anything. I'm, a development and marketing associate. Would I be welcomed in this space?" And his answer, as always, is absolutely. Whatever you want to do as part of the community, you are welcomed here in DPP. And so um, attended the monthly sessions, benefited from, all the research and resources that we all share freely with each other, and then said, "Hey, Lewis, you seem really busy. Do you want help with maybe content or social media? I'll volunteer." This again was before the conference. And he said, "Yes, great." And then Matthew Manfra and Lewis were leading this think tank about events and conferences. And through my new role, I had helped to produce a couple of virtual events and was like, yes, let me come and learn from my industry colleagues and maybe see if there's anything to share. And then before I knew it, we were putting on a conference and I was marketing co-chair because I was already moderator of a Facebook group. But in all seriousness, it's been fun. It was organic. It was nimble. We have a great community, and kind of you express interest in one thing and it, grows and grows, kind of like how we try to do in our work with our donors. So that's my DPP journey thus far.
Oh my goodness. And we're so grateful to have you. And you mentioned Matt Manfra, and it so happens that I have him here in my pocket. Let me put him on screen.
Yay! Hi, Matt.
It's good to see everybody. Thanks, Lewis.
Hi, welcome, Matt. So, as we're just doing a round robin of the conference steering committee, and folks are just sharing what it's like to be involved with this effort, which literally started in January. So we have a question, and I'm going to pose it to all four of you. Compared to an in-person conference, what was surprisingly different with putting on a virtual conference? Any thoughts about that? And that's a really good question from Nathan Best.
I think how nimble we can be. I mean, we reach out to headliners or sponsors and kind of solidify what we're doing within a month, within a week, because the virtual space allows us to move things along at such a quick space that we can't practically do in a physical realm because there's so many considerations.
I also think there's a tremendous value to the participants and the attendees because we're able to drive down costs related to travel, and having food and in a physical space. The content will be equally, if not more, engaging, but the cost factor much lower. So it just appeals to a much wider audience.
That's a really good thought.
I also think we don't have to turn away people that want to be presenters or speakers because we can expand. We have that opportunity. We have the opportunity to move things around, like Deb said, about being nimble with, creating different breakout rooms or breakthrough spaces where we can have those side discussions really quickly and follow up in real time with the people that are presenting.
Really helpful. And I have to say that the nimbleness and the speed that we've demonstrated is, I have heard remarks from, other like folks that work in large organizations, and we experience this in our everyday. Speed is a competitive, asset. So I feel like we have a great balance of doing things thoughtfully, but at the same time being able to act on them pretty quickly. So thank you, Nathan, for that great question. I'm going to turn it over to Lou just to share what his history has been, and keep going around the room that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Louis. So I've been in technology sales for over 20 years, and I met Louis about 3.5 years ago. He was a client of mine while I was at an online fundraising company. And I guess the sales process was okay because we've continued talking since. But no, I really fell in love with fundraising. To take a massive step back, long ago when I was a child, my grandmother, who we've since lost, would always make donations to St. Jude's. She thought it was the most incredible organization for what they do for children and to help families all over the country. And so after she passed, I sort of took on that mantle and got into fundraising, but was able to do it through a technology space. And when I got to know Louis and he founded this organization to turn around the decline in donor participation, I just thought it was such a tremendous cause, and to be part of it has really been wonderful. And I've met and also been able to work with former colleagues and met a lot of new faces that are just, the amount of talent that's in this organization is just overwhelming, and to be a part of it is humbling.
That's so kind of you, Lou. Thank you so much. Julie, we're super grateful to have you. It's I feel like we lucked out with all of you.
Well, thanks, Louis. I mean, this has been a phenomenal experience with DPP, the Donor Participation Project. I think that the first time I came to an event was probably almost like over a year ago. And very quickly, I was hitting you up, asking you if I could present. And I remember kind of like tracking you down and just being like, I don't know when, I don't know where, just tell me the place and I will be there. And so we got it organized, and, through the beauty of Zoom, we were able to, be in person, virtually with a great audience. And since then, being a part of the community, just kind of echoing what everyone else has said, has definitely led me to meet a lot of people that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet. And just through, conference planning, getting to work more closely, I think the original kind of catalyst, at least in my mind, for being a part of the steering committee was when I saw Matt put out an open, request about like, how can we do conferences better? Like, what have we learned during, this time where we've gone all digital, that we don't always have to be focusing on, what's going well. We can be focusing on other things and learning from each other. And that was really the spark, at least from my point of view, that I was like, I want to be a part of whatever this is. So I'm really excited to be a part of the committee.
Wow. And if I may say, Julie's session with the DPP was amazing. She was talking about the technology assessment and kind of purchase process. And we had a group, we had like both sides of the industry there. And we had such a like honest conversation, which Julie set up beautifully with, a very rigorous framework that she uses. So, just thank you. It was pretty special. We have a question before we ask Matt about his thoughts. What do you want people's biggest takeaway from this conference to be?
Well, we're all about turning the tide on donor participation, right? Fighting the tide, turning it back up. And so I want people to walk away with really practical tools, no matter what role they're in, to confidently seek out new and engage with the donors that they already have, to not feel intimidated to do so, to get their base really excited about communicating our vision to them in new ways, in non-traditional ways.
Awesome. So I'm going to let in a few more steering committee members. This is going to be the largest call we've had ever. So, hi, Natasha. Hi, Rashida. Welcome.
Hi.
So, we're doing a round robin, sharing our experience kind of building this conference in the last 3 months. And in the meantime, we have some very engaged audience members. Thank you, thank you, thank you, who are asking some really thoughtful questions. So the one that's on the screen is, what do you want people's biggest takeaway from this conference to be? I don't know if Rashida or Natasha have a thought. Or if not, I can kind of add a couple of thoughts too, which is when we started, we were focused on the topic of disruption. We felt that was a little bit too, I don't know, my take was it's a little bit destructive. It was kind of like, we don't want to burn the house down, but we want to innovate. And so we went with fundraisers innovating fundraising, which is a little bit of we're really in the field. We're seeing what works and what doesn't. And we have a pretty good sense of what needs to change. So we're trying to empower people to say, hey, if this isn't working, I can do something about it at all levels. So from the major gift level, from the technology level, from the DEI level, we really want this to be an empowering experience that you walk out with super practical advice.
I think to dovetail on that and what you said, we have to change some things up. Things aren't, if we continue with the status quo, we're going to continue to see what we're seeing from a donor participation standpoint. So I want folks to leave knowing that it's okay to question the direction that the industry is going. It's okay to question things that we've been doing year over year, and to ask ourselves, does this work anymore? In the days that we're living in a modern society, are these things still relevant? And maybe they are, but what I love about DPP is we have these questions frequently. We ask these questions frequently. And I agree with what Louis said about disruption. There's some negativity. There's negativity associated with that term, but to take it a softer side, we should be questioning things. We should be asking questions. Now's the time to do it. We're doing it and have been doing it really through this pandemic, and those questions aren't going away. So I hope folks who participate by asking lots of questions in those sessions and come back to their offices, back to their work groups to say, you know what, I learned something and I want to talk about it, and that we're creating safe spaces for those difficult conversations.
And what do they say the most dangerous words at an organization are? Because this is how we've always done it. So if we're disrupting one thing, it's that thought process.
Awesome. Another question from, in fact, another steering committee member who's added so much value to this process. What excites you most about the conference, and who should attend? Thank you, Cameron. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the what I've enjoyed about the donor participation project, in particular, this think tank, is that you get to hear from people that are doing the work, and how oftentimes you go to these big conferences and, big events, and, we read books and literature about what to do. But in terms of wrestling with the challenges that so many of us face, regardless whether you're in academic fundraising or in a nonprofit sector, oftentimes, the problems may look a little different, but they're largely the same. And so, how do we wrestle with those issues? And with the donor participation project, we kind of do it in a way that's collaborative, it's thoughtful. Oftentimes, to piggyback on some of the thoughts that were shared already, but you get the thoughts of people ask you questions that challenge us even in our thinking. And so it's great to have that kind of external perspective when we're wrestling with challenges that we're facing in our own organizations. And so it challenges not just the status quo and disrupting, on externally, but more, kind of internally, gives us an opportunity to take stock of what we're doing well, celebrate that, share it, but also to learn from peers in the field. And I really think there's nothing quite like that I've been a part of, and I appreciate it so much. So in terms of who should attend, I would say people that are just like us. We can learn a lot from one another, and there is I think remarkable opportunity in sharing our knowledge, and we can work together to shape the future of fundraising. I mean, how many organizations, Lewis, are represented on the DPP now? We're in the thousands, and so I think it just it speaks volumes. So if you're like us, if you like to ask questions, you don't want to do things because it's always been done that way, this is the place for you, and I think it'll bring you great joy, as it has for myself, and give you great ideas for how to do a better job.
My goodness. And I just have to say, Natasha, that was so moving. Yesterday we had a call. We were recruiting our last expert facilitator. And just every interaction that we've had as a group and individually together is just like, it truly seems like we're finding a path forward. So thank you. Rashida, you've been a wonderful member of the group. I'll take the question off the screen. What has your story been with the DPP? How did you fall into organizing this conference? And what did you like or not like about it?
Yeah. So I came to DPP a couple of years ago in the midst of the pandemic. Just curious, Lewis, I saw a post you had made and I was intrigued. And at the time I was very frustrated with the idea that, the limitations that I felt as a fundraiser, that for an organization that didn't have a lot of resources, that was really bootstrapping a lot of things. And, I'm a very forward-thinking kind of person, and I just knew that if I could talk to other people who understood my frustrations, but also had some solutions that were tangible and accessible to people in my position, that this would be a good thing. So I come from more of the mid to small nonprofit world. And so often our plight is that we are bootstrapping. We wear multiple hats, and we have very limited resources. Excuse my cat here. And oftentimes I would attend presentations or professional events, and they'd be like, yes, you can use this grand system and these. And I'd be like, never going to happen, right? Where's the money for that? And so it'd be like these pipe dreams that, were eluding me over and over and over. And so what I've really found in this group is the ability to just think through, to question things, and the ability to talk about, like, what are some really basic tenets of fundraising that we can use, and how can we adjust and adapt to our changing world, to changing donor demographics. How can we use different tools to make it a more inclusive philanthropic community and be more relevant organizations? And I've just enjoyed engaging in conversation with this group. It's a two-way dialogue that we have all the time, whether it just be, talking to your peers or having an expert join us. That's what I appreciate most. It's not just a presentation. That everyone's voice is valued and celebrated. So, yay!
Lovely.
Lewis, if I could jump in real quick, I wanted to jump off something Natasha said and give a shout out to Rashida, because when we were on probably our first or second call in January, we were talking about the format of the sessions. Like, Rashida brought us back in and said the format of the conference needs to follow the format that we already value in DPP, which is conversation-based sessions. This is not going to be a passive conference in webinar-only mode with people half-heartedly connecting with each other in the chat. There are going to be facilitated ways to converse and meet and learn from each other, just like we've been doing privately in DPP for 2 years. And so, Cameron's question, who should attend? It should be, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by a dozen sessions happening at once. We're spreading it out over, 4 weeks. There's only 1 or 2 things happening at a time. And if you've ever come away feeling like, okay, I watched something, but I didn't engage with it, come to our conference. It will be very, very different.
Thank you so much, Deb. And I particularly remember that meeting where that was kind of a stroke of genius that set us on the right path. So thank you, Rashida. But I think that's a little bit of the spirit. Like everybody has, I find it interesting when somebody comes to a place to kind of say, I'm the expert and you're not. Whereas usually in every presentation, every conference, there's as much expertise in the audience as on the stage, right? And we're trying to find a way to value that and to provide a framework so we can all learn from each other. We're almost done with the round robin. Natasha, you jumped right in and you answered a question very thoughtfully and with lots of eloquence. But if you'd like to just very briefly share how you got involved with the conference, how you found it, we can do that and then answer any additional questions we have.
Sure. Yeah. Just briefly, similar to Rashida, what she shared. I started following Louis on LinkedIn, and quickly was intrigued by his posts and felt there was a lot of alignment with the content that was being shared at the time and kind of what I was thinking as somebody in the field every day, and people were sharing challenges that I was also facing, and I thought, what a great opportunity to learn from one another. So I reached out, and Louis sent me the information, and I started attending some of the webinars and got to meet Russell James and some of the other folks that are going to be Jim Langley, who's participating. And, these are really thought leaders, people that have disrupted already. I mean, we've come so far in our profession, but indeed, we know that there's much work to be done and we have a long way to go. And we're in this new world. And so we need to be brave and courageous and innovative. And so it's, again, I think one of the most valuable aspects of this group is the fact that we're able to, learn from each other. And there's a lot of out of the box thinkers. And so people that are testing things and, while some things might, not work or get us the best results, we're always, Louis has got a scientific background, a research background. And so, and I lean towards research to drive decision making. And so I appreciate the value of evidence in leading us to solutions and new ideas that could transform an organization. So and certainly at a minimum bring more resources. So yeah.
That's fantastic. So we're going to give the mic to Matt Manfred in a sec, who has been mentioned previously today. But something I also value is how we're discovering that incredible breadth of talents that, we're not just a frontline fundraiser, or we're not just a marketing person. We've had an executive director of an arts organization turned nonprofit technology consultant. We have people who are freelancing in areas related to their work or not related to their work, educators that are also during the day speaking with donors or putting on events for donors. So we're kind of discovering a whole amount of depth and value that people can add to this. So having said that, Matt, you bring so much value to our group. Thanks so much. Would you like to share a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you, Louis. And it's awesome to be in a room with such talented people. And that's what I love about this group, the diversity of thought. I mean, there are so many really smart people that are participating in this project. And depending on what hall you join, you meet someone new. What I have found to be so refreshing is I've met people I never would have met had it not been for the DPP. It just never would have crossed paths. So those professional relationships have been rewarding. They've been rich, and we've followed up with each other. I'm connected with people on LinkedIn I never would have been connected with. So from a professional development standpoint, that's awesome, and I can share those resources with my colleagues and with other people. And Natasha mentioned another piece. Not only is the diversity of this group incredible, but we're talking about data. We're not just espousing thought and getting on soapboxes. When we gather, we talk about real concrete things that are problematic, things that may be bothering us. And this conference, this all started in June of 2021. Lewis and Jim Langley led a conversation about the future of conferences. And it was such a wide-ranging conversation that there were a number of us who said, we just want to continue this. And we did. And not only did we just talk about it, but now you have, a part of what we put together. A project that ended with this wonderful conference. So I'm just so elated any chance I get the opportunity to work with the people on your screen and other members of the DPP. It's a professionally uplifting organization, and I think that this industry, the fundraising industry, needs more groups like this that are organic, made up of people who want to get together and really enjoy the time that they spend together. So it's awesome to be a part of it.
So our wonderful steering committee member, Cameron Hall, poses a really good question. And he's saying, this is a question from a friend, wink, wink. Is donor participation an annual giving only conference or group? Who wants to take a stab at answering that? I see shaking heads. No, nobody.
No.
The answer is no.
Yeah, our shops and organizations are extremely wide-ranging, represented amongst both the group and the steering committee. I think because of Lewis's background, the founding of it has a high participation of higher education folks, but I'm not in higher education. I'm in the social sector and folks in the arts and all kinds of things, all different funds, all different roles, and the sessions have been designed with that in mind.
Yeah, and even right here, right? So you see the social sector with Deb, sales, technology sales with Lou. Matt is leading his own shop. Rosita's environmental, right? An environmental organization. Natasha's in higher ed. So, but in also in a leadership role. So really, there is a wide variety. It's really incredible. We have people signed up for the conference from India, from Spain, from the UK, from Switzerland. Obviously, kind of focused on the English-speaking world, but there is a lot of international interest in all types of organizations. So we hope that answer it. We're very grateful. I'm personally grateful to everybody that's on the call today. And we're very grateful for everybody who has shown interest, who has supported, as simply as with a click on LinkedIn. That's called clicktivism. I read about that. But also joining our calls and kind of putting yourself out there and leading with your thoughts and letting it develop from there and asking those questions. So Deb has a question for me that she's posing in the chat, which is one of the great things of doing this live. Conference growth. What do you mean by that, Deb?
I saw here someone asked early on, do you see this conference staying virtual or transitioning to hybrid or in person? And that's, a loaded question because capacity wise, we're all volunteers with full-time jobs and DPP is a passion project. But I'm curious, catching each of us on the spot, like,
what's the future like?
What's the answer? Right? Yeah, what's the future? So sorry, Lewis, if that's a complete hijack, but I thought that was a really valuable question.
It is. So I don't know. I mean, I think we have weighed a lot of the accessibility factors. I remember in all that work we did where shops, it's an inclusion factor. You're leaving people out if you're making people pay $1,400 just to sit in a room, right? We also tried to weigh the fact that, well, if we want this to be a transformational experience, so something that people are paying attention to, not one of those like freebie webinars. So so we try to weigh a lot of factors. And I think what we've discovered is that putting on a conference is hard. And people who do it, kudos, because, it's true that we may be trying things differently, but that in no way is, saying that other models have not been extremely valuable. I mean, it's hard. There's so much to balance, right? I'm just going to maybe blurt out, but you try to have you want to highlight voices that are new and that are adding new things. But then the reality is also that people are attracted to known names and voices, and you actually want to have people in a room to be able to have the conversation. So I have to say, that sense has also been a learning experience, I think.
And I think one thing that's particularly important is that all of us collectively have been to in-person conferences, and Rashid has even taken that a step further, and we've been to virtual conferences when COVID started. So we sort of took the best of breed approach to this, and we know what works well and what needs to be changed. And we really think this is going to be just a fantastic format and be engaging throughout the entire 4 weeks.
Well,
not only have we learned a lot already, I think there's still more to learn, particularly after we execute this, and we'll be able to, take feedback and think about what went well, what we'd like to change. Does this format work moving forward? Are there new advances we could take advantage of? But certainly the work of the think tank focused on the accessibility of virtual, the fact that anyone can participate, provided they can carve some time out, and of course at our price point, cost is certainly not a boundary, as Lewis mentioned, for so many other conferences. So I think there's an opportunity for us to, and even do this in between sessions, to look at what's working, what we want to increase, what we want to improve, and what we may want to change, or just keep the same.
Thank you. And I realized I hadn't put up the link for the conference. If anybody that's here would like to read more, find out, look at the schedule, we invite you to do so. I'll just say that to answer all of those questions, I don't really know the answers, but I know that the process we have and the people that we have involved are pretty great. So I have a great amount of trust in that. I don't know if that's kind of a roundabout answer, Deb, or non-answer, but this is truly special. We're going to wrap this up. There's a question from Jennifer Martinez. I'll answer separately. But I do think that this conference could add value to you. And we have scholarships, which have been very generously provided by Evertrue. Boyden is helping us provide speaker fees, which we felt was also important from a DEI perspective. So we're trying to do things the right way. And if you see something that's not working, just tell us. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. We're very responsive. So thank you, steering committee. We hope you have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Al. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.